The image is almost irresistible, isn't it? You close your eyes and you think about that quintessential English fairy tale.
Hmm.
We're talking about those, impossibly picturesque thatch roofs, the deep green of a manicured village green, and that unbelievable honey-colored stone.
The stone that seems to actually glow.
It really does. When the sun finally breaks through the clouds, it's the tranquility of sheep grazing, the coziness of a centuries-old pub. It's the Beatrix Potter aesthetic, the perfect Instagram scroll brought to life.
That is precisely the marketing narrative.
Yeah.
It's the expectation built by, a thousand travel bloggers in these high-production TV shows.
Right.
But here is the critical counter-reality. It's the logistical truth that the stack of sources we deep dived into immediately hit us with.
And what's that?
If you arrive there expecting a purely relaxing, spontaneous weekend without meticulous planning, and I mean planning that borders on military strategy, you are going to spend your entire trip frustrated.
So that fairy tale image shatters pretty quickly.
Instantly. You will be stuck behind a tractor, a constant reminder that this is a working agricultural landscape, not, a theme park. You'll pay a frankly scandalous £40 for a mediocre Sunday roast, and you will be fighting hundreds of other people just for a postage stamp-sized parking spot.
That tension is immediate, and it's fascinating. Our sources suggest the Cotswolds is sort of simultaneously the absolute best destination for a specific type of traveler.
The one who has done all their homework.
Exactly. And the most frustrating, patience-testing nightmare for another. So our mission for this deep dive is to equip you with the knowledge to navigate that tension.
Yeah, to help you figure out which camp you fall into.
Right. And ultimately define exactly which type of traveler you are so you can either plan for success or, strategically choose an alternative.
We need to pull back the curtain on the romance, using the data to bridge that gap between expectation and reality. And we can start with a few foundational facts, the aha moments that should totally reframe your mindset before you even look at booking a flight.
Okay, let's start with the scale, because this is where the first expectation is, I think, fundamentally misaligned with what's actually on the ground.
Absolutely. When people say they're visiting the Cotswolds, they imagine a single cozy town.
Like it's one destination on a map.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But the Cotswolds is not a place. It's a massive, sweeping region. We're talking over 800 square miles.
800.
And it spans 5 different English counties: Gloucestershire, Oxfordshire, Wiltshire, Somerset, and Worcestershire.
So the idea that you can do the Cotswolds in a single day or even a rushed weekend is just, it's not happening.
Not unless you want to spend 90% of your time just driving past hedges, trying to see things you don't have time to stop for.
And then there's the history, which complicates the romance of it all.
It really does. People see that picture-perfect beauty and they just assume it's quaint by accident.
That it just grew that way.
Yeah, and it is profoundly not. The sources make it so clear. This is an industrial landscape. In the medieval period, say from the 13th to the 16th centuries, the Cotswolds was the absolute epicenter of the European wool trade.
The wool trade. I think people forget how massive that was.
Is the oil of its day? The wealthy wool merchants, the wool barons, became immensely rich, and that aggressive historical wealth is what built and preserve the entire aesthetic you see today. You are walking through the maintained remnants of a powerful global industry, not some untouched natural wilderness.
That detail is so crucial because it explains the preservation, and it also, quite frankly, it explains the current pricing, which we'll definitely get into. But that historical wealth also dictated the infrastructure, these small winding lanes designed for sheep and carts, not modern cars, which brings us right to the logistics challenge.
Yes, and the sources are unanimous and pretty stern on this point. Public transport is largely a ghost story.
A ghost story. I like that.
It exists, minimally, but it is deeply unreliable, especially when you get outside the core towns. Visiting the idyllic villages without driving means you are playing this trip on what we would call hard mode.
Right. You lose all your flexibility.
All of it.
Yeah.
And you drastically increase your travel time between locations. You're just waiting for buses that might not show up.
And tying all three of those points together, the size, the wealth, the isolation, is the financial reality. What our sources called the dreaded Cotswolds premium.
Yeah, that term came up again and again.
What does it actually mean for the traveler?
It means you should prepare to pay London prices. And in some areas, we found evidence of prices even higher than London for what are essentially rural services and amenities.
So the value proposition is all wrong.
It's often completely upside down. You are paying heavily for the view, for the location, not for the luxury or quality of the offering itself.
So, if we accept this foundational tension, this clash between the fairy tale image and the logistical reality, the only way to succeed is to be strategic.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to guide you step by step through those financial traps and the logistical quicksand.
To make sure that when you do arrive, you can actually find that aesthetic tranquility that, yes, it really can heal your soul.
If you prepare correctly. That's the big if.
Okay, let's look at that crucial first step of preparation, which is adjusting your expectations. We really need to talk about the influence of modern media and how it has fundamentally warped the tourist influx.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the current cultural backdrops. You have shows like The Gentleman showcasing these beautiful country estates.
Right. And Clarkson's Farm, which documents the harsh realities but has also driven a huge amount of traffic to the area.
A massive amount. And of course, period dramas like Bridgerton use that honey-colored stone and those grand manners as their high expectation setting. These shows turn the whole region into a pristine, idealized film set.
And this translates directly into what our sources call the Instagram disconnect. We all know the images. The iconic locations, say Arlington Row in Byberry or Castlecombe, photographed at sunrise.
Always at sunrise.
Always. The fog is lifting, there are no cars, no people, and the village seems to exist in this exclusive, silent English bubble just for you.
But the sources contrast that expectation with the crushing, overwhelming reality of peak hours. Arlington Row, the most famous street of Weaver's Cottages, at 11 a.m. on a busy July Saturday.
What's it actually like?
It looks, and this is a quote from one of our travel pieces, like a queue for a ride at Disney World, except the ride is just a view of some houses.
Wow.
This isn't an off-the-beaten-path discovery. It's an established, highly concentrated tourist funnel. And failing to acknowledge that means expecting spontaneous serenity will just lead to crushing disappointment.
So it raises the question, why is everything so visually perfect? Why is there no modern sprawl? It's not an accident of good taste.
Not at all. It's mandated.
Mandated by what?
By the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty designation, now officially called a National Landscape, which has been in place since 1966.
And that designation is really the single most important factor defining the visual look of the Cotswolds.
It's essential for you to grasp its depth. This designation means strict planning rules prevent any new, jarring, modern construction. We're talking about rules on materials, paint colors, even the type of roof tiling you can use.
So no big, shiny, modern glass boxes.
No, or large, brightly colored plastic advertising signs. The preservation effort here is aggressive and legally enforced. You are paying a premium because the locals are legally restricted in how they can modernize or expand their properties, which, it maintains the overall ambiance.
Right. It's a collective visual good, but that collective good comes at an individual and ultimately a tourist cost. We also have to ground this in the fact that this is a truly living agricultural area.
Exactly. When you are stuck behind that slow-moving tractor for 15 minutes, it's not just a quirky photo opportunity.
It's someone's job.
It's a necessary function of the working landscape. This explains the challenging nature of the B roads, the farm traffic, and why infrastructure, like internet and cell service, often prioritizes rural convenience over tourist luxury.
And as we plan the itinerary, understanding the geography is paramount. The sources delineate a clear difference in atmosphere, tourist maturity, and price between the North and South Cotswolds.
Yeah, this is a really important distinction. The North is the star. When most people imagine the Cotswolds, they are thinking of the North. Chippingcampton, Broadway, Stowe-on-the-Wold, Bourton-on-the-Water.
The big names.
The big names. This is the shiny, manicured, picture-perfect, tourist-heavy side. It's where you will find the highest concentration of high-end hotels, boutiques, and Michelin-star dining. It is beautiful, but you are guaranteed crowds and the highest version of that Cotswolds premium.
But if you want something a bit more grounded, maybe a little rougher around the edges, which paradoxically often feels more authentic, you need to head south.
Exactly. The South Cotswolds, around Stroud, Painswick, and the Deep Valleys, are grittier. They have a more vibrant, artistic, and bohemian community. Think small artisan workshops and independent coffee roasters, rather than high-end antique shops.
So the South hasn't been polished quite as aggressively for the international market.
That's a good way to put it. Which means prices are slightly more reasonable, and the atmosphere feels genuinely lived in. If you are a traveler looking for a feeling of discovery, the South will reward you more than the perfectly curated North.
And this geographical distance brings us to the biggest logistical misconception that we found consistently frustrating travelers in our sources: the village hopping reality.
Oh, this one is huge.
The map makes it look like a pleasant stroll.
It does. People assume they can just link the villages like they would neighborhoods in a city. But the reality is that the distances are typically between 5 and 10 miles.
And they are connected by what kind of roads?
By high-speed, fast roads where cars are easily traveling at 60 miles per hour. And there are almost never sidewalks or pavements. Attempting to walk along these roads is dangerous and often impossible.
So you are not strolling unless you are on a designated public footpath. We're talking about true dedicated hiking trails like the 102-mile-long Cotswold Way.
Right, which traverses fields and styles. If you want to link those idyllic villages, you need a car, or you need dedicated hiking boots, appropriate gear, and several hours of hiking time. You can't just wander from one to the next in your nice shoes.
So the key takeaway from setting expectations is that the beauty is absolutely real, but you must expect to share it.
Yes, unless you are willing to embrace the logistical discomforts like getting up pre-dawn, visiting in the depths of winter, or, crucially, spending significant time planning your transit strategy.
So if we accept the logistical pain and the financial commitment, what is the actual reward? What does it feel like when you finally navigate the B roads, find parking, and step into the sunlight? Let's talk about that. First impressions and sensory details.
We have to start with the stone. The Oolitic limestone is the absolute core of the aesthetic.
Oolitic limestone.
It's geologically unique because it's formed from minute marine fossils, these things called oids, and it's porous. So when the sun is out, this stone absorbs and reflects the light in a specific way that makes it truly glow. It shifts from a pale beige to a deep, radiating gold, especially in the late afternoon.
And that's what creates that famous honey pillar.
Exactly. When the light hits villages like Burford or Stowe just right, it truly radiates warmth. It's a physical feeling.
That sounds idyllic, but our sources mention that the historical preservation standards aren't applied evenly everywhere. Does that glow ever fade? Where does the ancient stone meet the jarring reality?
That's a sharp question. And yeah, the glow absolutely fades when you are in the perimeter towns like Cirencester or Stroud, which are functional market towns.
So real towns with real life happening.
Right. There, the ancient stone lines the historical core, but it quickly gives way to 20th century commercial buildings, large supermarket chains, and the modern clutter of functional infrastructure. The true gold glow experience is reserved for the tiny preserved villages like Lower Slaughter or Byberry, where those AONB restrictions are most severely applied to maintain that uniform historical feel.
For the traveler, especially the international visitor, that initial sensory detail is often immediately overshadowed by something far more visceral: the driving experience. This is pure adrenaline.
It truly is. We need to define what a B road is for listeners unfamiliar with UK infrastructure. Unlike A roads, which are the main arterial routes, B roads are smaller, often single-track roads.
Single track meaning?
Meaning there's often only room for one car. And they frequently have high stone walls or 6-foot-high hedges flanking both sides. This means you have zero visibility around blind crests and corners.
The sources noted that for many first-time visitors, the first 24 hours behind the wheel involve a period of pure driving terror. You are constantly bracing for an oncoming vehicle.
And the Range Rover incident is not an isolated event. It's a rite of passage. It captures the absurdity perfectly.
Paint the picture for us.
Okay. You are carefully inching your little rental car along, and suddenly, a massive, expensive 4x4, driven by a local who knows every single curve, comes flying around a corner.
And they don't slow down.
Never. They will simply stop, expecting you, the tourist, to find the nearest passing place, which is often just a muddy indentation in the verge, and reverse 200 yards to let them through. The sound of the high hedge scraping against your passenger side mirror is the soundtrack to the Cotswolds driving experience.
But once you conquer that terror, once you survive the range of B roads and M roads and find parking, the vibe shifts profoundly.
It does. The first impression is one of extreme, almost obsessive cleanliness.
It feels established old money.
And highly manicured. The wealth is quiet, but it's omnipresent. The grass verges are perfectly cut. The hedges are meticulously trimmed. There is absolutely no litter or trash anywhere visible on the village streets. It's a place where everything is cared for, creating an immediate visual sense of order and serenity.
And that aesthetic flows right into the historical atmosphere. Walking into a pub that has been established since, say, 1500 is a sensory immersion.
It really is. The experience is so palpable, The floors are uneven. You can feel the centuries of footsteps under your feet. The ceilings are often low.
Right. Watch your head if you're over 6 feet tall.
Definitely. And the air smells specifically of burning wood smoke from the fireplace and old ale and damp earth.
That feeling is one of profound safety and insulation. You are literally wrapped in thick stone walls that have stood for 500 years. It feels completely separate from the frantic real world.
It's the closest you can get to stepping back in time without a physical time machine.
However, that insulation comes with a major trade-off, a significant convenience vacuum.
Yes. The sources stress this. The Cotswolds operates on a rural rhythm, not a tourist clock. This place is genuinely sleepy.
So if you arrive at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday without a confirmed dinner reservation,
Your first impression of charming old-world safety will quickly turn into gnawing hunger. Kitchens close early, often by 8 p.m., because staff rely on limited transport and local custom dictates an earlier schedule.
and what specific food options vanish after 7 p.m.? Are we talking about high-end dining or just basic pub fare?
We're talking about anything requiring a working kitchen. The village shops, the local butchers or bakeries are long closed. Your options revert rapidly to extremely expensive takeout, if you can even find one that delivers, or a packet of crisps and a lukewarm sandwich from a tiny petrol station on the edge of a larger town.
So the lack of spontaneous convenience is a major stress point for unprepared travelers.
Huge. But the payoff for that required preparation and lack of urban convenience is the profound silence at night. It is a genuine escape.
Right, because there is so little light pollution in the deep valleys.
The stars are incredible. You can see the full, unpolluted night sky. And the silence is audible. You can distinctly hear wildlife owls hooting, deer moving through the brush. There are no sirens, no traffic noise, no city hum. That deep contrast with urban life is the true essence of the escape promise, and it is absolutely priceless.
Let's open the ledger now and talk about the financial friction. This silence and beauty come at a steep price. The Cotswolds is expensive, and often the traveler feels they're receiving poor value for that high price tag. We need to explain why these costs are so high.
We really need to dissect these expenses because they consistently shock visitors who anticipate standard English country pricing. The high cost is driven by three main factors.
Okay, what are they?
First, that AONB designation limiting new building supply, which means scarcity. Second, high local wages because of the wealthy resident base. And third, just the sheer demand for this unique aesthetic.
Okay, let's start with accommodation. Usually the largest line item. Low-budget options are, well, they're almost functionally non-existent.
They are. They're restricted to a handful of scattered YHA hostels, like the one near Stowe, which you have to book months in advance. Camping is the only true low-cost option, and even a tent pitch on a basic site will run you about 25 to 30 pounds per night.
And that's often without electric hookup.
Right. If you need a roof over your head, the price just jumps immediately and steeply.
Which brings us to the mid-range pain point. This is where most of our listeners, the curious standard travelers, will land. A standard B&B, or a basic room above a pub, is currently running between 120 pounds and 180 pounds per night.
And this is the core of the poor value argument. For that 160 pounds, you are often getting a tiny room, creaky floorboards, sometimes a questionable shared bathroom situation, and frequently a view of a brick wall or a noisy car park.
So you might have low water pressure and a single thin towel.
Exactly. You are not paying for the quality of the room or the amenities. You are paying a $1 premium purely for the four walls of the building being located in a beautiful, highly restricted historical village.
It's the cost of scarcity and preservation. By contrast, the high end simply smooths over every financial and logistical friction point, but the price is astronomical.
We're talking manor house hotels or converted rectory houses starting at 350 pounds a night and easily hitting 800 pounds plus for a proper suite.
Wow. Okay, let's move to food and dining expenses, and let's tackle the mid-range shock head-on.
Okay, if you are scraping by, you are confined to the few larger supermarket towns, like a Tesco or Waitrose, or grabbing a small cold bakery sausage roll for about 3 pounds.
But the moment you sit down in a pub, the costs just escalate dramatically.
A standard pub meal, a simple burger or fish and chips, plus a pint of local beer is a minimum 25-pound commitment per person.
25 pounds for a burger and a pint.
Minimum. If you are dining at a gastropub, which means they are focused on higher quality, often local ingredients with a slightly fancier presentation main courses, routinely run between 18 and 24 pounds.
Which is far above what you would expect in a typical rural area of the UK.
Far above. It reflects the concentrated demand and the high operating costs associated with these small historic premises.
And when we talked about that dreadful 40-pound mediocre Sunday roast, we need to contextualize that. A proper Sunday roast should be a beautiful experience.
It should. You want quality meat beef, lamb, or chicken roast potatoes, seasonal vegetables, a Yorkshire pudding, and thick gravy.
So when our sources complained about the 40-pound mediocre experience, what were they getting?
They were specifically referring to tough meat, watery gravy, and clearly frozen vegetables served without apology in a crowded, high-demand environment. You are paying a high price for an experience that, in less tourist-focused regions, would cost £15 and be far higher quality.
The small costs are also budget killers, that quintessential cream tea experience.
A scone, clotted cream, jam, and tea.
Right. That'll run you between 8 and 12 pounds per person. If a couple indulges in that just once a day, over a 4-day trip, that's already approaching 100 pounds in scone consumption alone.
It adds up so fast. Now, transportation, the unavoidable budget drain. If you rent a compact automatic car, which you really should because of the narrow roads, it's roughly 40 to 60 pounds a day.
And UK petrol is notoriously expensive.
Averaging around £1.50 per liter, and you burn that fuel rapidly navigating the constant hills and short, demanding roads between villages.
And if you decide to play on hard mode and skip the car, relying on trains to perimeter towns like Morton and Marsh or Stroud, you then hit the taxi trap.
Cotswold taxis are extortionate. It's because of the lack of competition and the necessity for the driver to deadhead drive long distances, often empty, just to pick you up. A 10-minute, 8-mile ride can easily cost you 20 to 25 pounds.
So you lose all flexibility and your budget hemorrhages cash just trying to move between points B and C.
Our sources indicated travelers relying on trains and taxis were consistently over budget by 30% just on transport alone.
So what's the good news financially? Are there any bright spots?
Activities. The best parts are genuinely free. The aesthetic is the activity. Walking the public footpaths, getting lost in the architecture of the villages, and visiting the incredibly ancient, often free-to-enter parish churches.
The required paid entry, however, can be steep.
Very. Blenheim Palace, just on the eastern edge, is nearly £35 per adult, and Sudeley Castle is around £20. If you are visiting 2 major sites in one day, you have added £110 to a couple's daily budget before you've even had lunch.
So synthesizing all this, what is the clear daily budget summary for you, the learner?
Okay, let's break it down. First, the scraper. This is the ultra-budget traveler. You're camping, eating exclusively supermarket food, and relying solely on free hiking. You're looking at about £60 per day.
Which is manageable but highly restrictive and requires intense planning.
Very intense. Okay, next up, the standard traveler. This is the mid-range couple staying in a pub B&B, 1 modest pub meal per day, 1 picnic lunch, and splitting the cost of a rental car. This is the shocking number, £180 per person per day.
Wow, that's 360 pounds a day for a couple just to have a decent, comfortable, but not luxurious experience. This is the number that destroys most travelers' projections.
It really is. And finally, the comfort traveler. Enjoying a nice hotel, 2 meals out, entry fees, and wine. You are running at £350 plus per person per day. The fundamental lesson here is that the standard experience is already highly costly, and you must internalize that reality before you commit to the trip.
Let's transition now from the costs to the specific practical steps you can take to mitigate the logistical nightmares. Segment 4, Logistics and Planning Traps. This is the practical survival guide derived from our sources.
We analyzed the common pitfalls and found 3 distinct named traps that derail the spontaneous traveler. Trap number 1, the Sunday transport trap.
Okay, what's the problem here?
The problem centers on the local bus service, primarily Pullman's coaches. They operate a functional, minimal schedule during the week, which is largely focused on school runs and local commuters.
But on Sundays and public holidays?
The schedules are drastically slashed, or they disappear entirely, often ceasing service completely after 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And we found several anecdotes about this, like the specific one about the couple stranded in Bourton-on-the-Water.
Yes. They assumed standard evening service would exist. The bus stopped running at 4:30 p.m. They were faced with a decision, a long, dark walk on dangerous, sidewalkless roads, or paying a brutal, unbudgeted 60-pound taxi ride for an 8-mile distance, all because they missed that 4:30 p.m. cutoff.
So the fix is preventative and slightly analog.
Exactly. Do not trust Google Maps blindly on weekends, as this data can be slow to update for specific rural UK routes. You must go to the source, download the specific PDF timetables from the County Council websites, Gloucestershire, Wiltshire, and so on.
And the crucial addition to that fix, signal loss is inevitable in the valleys.
Save the number of 2 or 3 local-specific taxi companies before you lose signal. If you wait until you are stranded in a dark village with no bars on your phone, you are truly helpless.
Okay, trap number 2. The Castle Combe parking nightmare. Why is this village, arguably the most famous, most photographed village in the entire region, so problematic?
Castle Combe is historically protected and geographically constrained. It was built around a river, and its layout just does not accommodate modern tourism. It has exactly one public car park at the top of the village.
And that car park fills up by what time?
By 9:30 a.m. on any day with decent weather.
What happens next is what ruins the experience. Frustrated visitors, having driven so far, resort to illegal parking blocking narrow lanes, parking on double yellow lines, or attempting to squeeze onto private verges.
And you will get ticketed. And our sources note that the hostility from the locals is palpable. It turns a magical destination into an experience of stress and resentment.
So what's the fix?
It's time-based. Go after 4:00 p.m. The day trippers, who are overwhelmingly the parking problem, have usually left by then. The light is often better for photography anyway, as the harsh midday sun is softened. Or, the better alternative, park in a neighboring village, like Bourton, and enjoy a peaceful 30-minute hike in. You arrive refreshed, not frantic.
Trap number 3. The table for two assumption. If the sources teach us one thing, it's that spontaneity leads to hunger here.
That's absolutely right. You assume, because you're in the countryside, that those small, charming village pubs will easily accommodate walk-ins at peak dinner hours, say 7 p.m.
But these are small premises, serving both the local community and the tourist influx with a very limited number of tables.
They're not easily accessible for walk-ins. If you want to eat at the famous places, the highly rated gastropubs like the Wild Rabbit or the King and Plow, you need to operate on a 3-week booking window.
3 weeks in advance.
Particularly if you are traveling during high season or for a weekend. And even a standard beloved village pub needs a reservation 24 hours in advance, minimum, especially on Friday and Saturday evenings.
Do not assume spontaneity translates to a good meal.
It translates directly to a long, hungry search and ending up with supermarket snacks.
Beyond the 3 traps, let's talk about connectivity. We mentioned signal loss, but we need to stress the necessity of preparedness. 5G exists in towns like Cheltenham and Cirencester.
But the moment you drop into a valley where all the most beautiful villages are tucked away, your signal vanishes entirely. This is a major issue for navigation.
So you must download offline maps for GPS.
You have to, via Google Maps or a dedicated hiking app. Do not rely on real-time routing, or you will find yourself lost and unable to recover your route in a complex network of narrow, unsigned lanes.
And gear. We see the photos of people looking glamorous in the countryside, but the traditional tweed and hunter wellies look is actually practical clothing.
This is crucial advice. The trails are damp and muddy even in summer, thanks to the constant British weather and the fact that you are traversing active fields where livestock have churned the ground. If you bring white fashion sneakers, they will be ruined by noon on your first day of hiking.
Invest in durable, waterproof footwear. Don't let soggy feet ruin your disposition.
And a final, niche logistical warning that destroys the romance upon arrival. Luggage.
What's the problem with luggage?
Bring a smaller, more manageable suitcase, or ideally a backpack. Many of these charming 17th century inns and B&Bs lack elevators or lifts. They were built centuries before such things existed, and the AONB restrictions prevent adding them.
So lugging a massive 50-pound hardshell suitcase up a narrow, winding spiral staircase
is incredibly difficult, often results in damage to the bag or the building, and instantly breaks the spell of the romantic arrival.
Okay, we've covered the pain points. Let's transition now to segment 5, safety and comfort assessment. We need to be clear that the risks here are primarily financial and comfort related, not, about physical threat.
Right. Physically, this is one of the safest destinations in the world. Violent crime is incredibly low. If you are walking alone at night, the biggest physical threat is tripping over an ancient, uneven cobblestone because the pavement has shifted over the centuries.
The real scams are financial. The tourist traps of high-cost, low-value experiences we discussed. This is the financial crime profile of a heavily trafficked, expensive destination, not a physically dangerous one.
However, comfort risks are significant, especially with changing climate patterns. We must talk about air conditioning, or the profound lack thereof.
In heat waves, which are becoming increasingly common in the UK, 30 degrees Celsius or higher, those beautiful, thick-walled stone cottages turn into ovens.
They do. The thermal mass of the stone retains heat fiercely, meaning they cool down very slowly, often staying hot all night. If you are booking in July or August, you must inquire if the accommodation provides fans or AC. Do not assume.
A lack of fans or AC will absolutely ruin your sleep quality and your disposition for the next day's activities.
Mitigation strategies include opening windows immediately after sunset when the temperature drops, or booking places with ground floor rooms which retain less heat.
We also need to address biological risks, which often surprise visitors coming from urban centers. Ticks.
Lyme disease is present in the UK, and if you are embracing the true countryside escape, walking through long grass on the designated footpaths, or pushing through brush, you need to take precautions.
So wear long trousers, use insect repellent.
And critically, check yourself and your travel partners thoroughly at the end of the day, paying attention to hidden areas like the scalp and behind the knees.
Let's return to driving risk mitigation, but purely from an insurance perspective. The risk of damaging a rental car is statistically high here.
It's a constant hazard. You are constantly squeezing your vehicle through gaps meant for horses, not SUVs. Alloy wheels are frequently destroyed on the sharp, unforgiving stone curbs and ancient walls.
And mirror-to-mirror smashes on narrow lanes are common.
Very common when passing farm vehicles or other tourists who are also terrified. So the tip here is not optional. Buy the zero excess insurance.
For the benefit of the learner, this means you pay a premium up front. But if you damage the car, and you very well might, you pay absolutely nothing for the repair.
Pay for the peace of mind. When you are squeezing your rental car through that narrow lane, the security of knowing any damage caused by that low stone wall or the passing tractor is covered is absolutely worth every single penny of the premium.
Right. The anxiety of potentially paying a 1,500-pound excess for scraping your paint is far more exhausting than the small cost of the additional insurance.
Exactly.
Finally, a note on solo female travel, particularly concerning social interaction.
Our sources confirm the Cotswolds is generally safe and harassment-free. The issue is isolation, particularly in the pub scene.
How so?
Pub culture is respectful, sometimes to a fault. If you are sitting alone reading a book or on your phone, locals will leave you alone entirely. This can feel isolating or lonely if you are hoping for casual conversation or connection. The traveler must be prepared to be the one to initiate contact if they are seeking social interaction.
We've established the planning, the costs, and the risks. Now let's move to segment 6, the emotional scorecard. Where does the Cotswolds truly achieve that masterpiece potential, justifying all the pain, and where does it fail and become a tourist trap?
Let's start with the justification. The greatest potential lies in what the Danish call hygge, or the German Gemütlichkeit, that profound, cozy feeling of contentment.
That feeling you can't quite translate.
Exactly. My favorite anecdote that encapsulates this payoff required only two things: proper preparation and the right timing. It was in Snowsill, the tiny, beautiful village used for the filming of parts of Bridget Jones.
Okay, set the scene for us.
It was a quiet Tuesday evening in October, meaning the day trippers were long gone, and it was raining lightly outside, which just enhanced the feeling of insulation. I was in the Snowshill Arms, a tiny ancient pub. There was no loud music, just the quiet hum of local conversation and the gentle crackle of a real wood fire.
Sounds perfect.
It was. I was sitting with a pint of local cloudy cider, tasting the sharpness of the apples, and a local gentleman with a border terrier started discussing the 400-year history of the manor house next door. That feeling of insulation, of deep historical resonance, of peace, the Cotswolds absolutely owns that moment when you find it.
That sounds like a perfect success story born from strategic timing. My best moment was also a logistical triumph, which, as we noted, felt like cheating the system. It solved the transit and parking problem entirely.
You rented e-bikes, right? Electric assistance is crucial for those unforgiving hills.
It was the best decision of the trip. We rented them in Bourton-on-the-Water and rode out to the slaughters, Upper and Lower Slaughter. The e-bike assistance meant the hills weren't brutal, and we bypassed the major stress point, car congestion.
That is the optimal way to experience those small, fragile villages.
Exactly. Zero parking stress, zero traffic frustration. We simply leaned the bikes against a little stone bridge over the River Eye, ate a pre-packed picnic sandwich by the water, and watched the main road leading into Bourton gridlocked with cars searching desperately for a parking spot.
That feeling of gliding past the congestion and enjoying the scenery, knowing you beat the system, was glorious.
It really was. Now let's balance that with the disappointments, the tourist trap reality. We must discuss Bybury and Arlington Row again.
Yes.
Arlington Row is visually stunning. We cannot deny its beauty. The famous weavers' cottages are iconic. They represent the historical wealth we discussed. But the experience during the day is awful. Our sources repeatedly described it as a functional coach park.
The experience is reduced to a frantic photo opportunity. You are fighting influencers trying to set up perfect shots, dodging massive coach engines, idling, and navigating hundreds of people. The crowds are so thick that it is impossible to frame a photograph without a stranger in it.
So it feels like a beautiful historical backdrop, but it's entirely divorced from a living community.
There is simply no soul left there during peak hours. It's a high-cost theme park set.
And my personal disappointment centers on the cost-to-value ratio in the dining scene, particularly in the polished north. I recall a specific 140-pound dinner for two in Chipping Norton. The food was fine, perfectly adequate, but the service was aloof, almost arrogant.
That creeping entitlement we mentioned earlier.
Yes, that precise attitude. The waiter seemed driven by the unspoken thought that we don't need to try very hard because the international tourists will keep coming anyway, regardless of the service. That attitude, where the price dictates luxury but the service provides apathy, is a noticeable, disappointing trend in the highly tourist-focused northern dining establishments.
So the contrast is clear. The Cotswolds delivers the masterpiece when you invest in quiet timing and logistical planning, but delivers the trap when you attempt to spontaneously access the highly demanded famous centers during peak hours.
Okay, that leads us directly to segment 7. Strategic alternatives and combo itineraries. If the cost, that 180 pounds per day standard budget, or the crowds are a complete deal breaker, where can you go to get that countryside fix without the pain?
Alternative number 1, Shropshire. It offers a similar level of rolling, gentle hills and profound history, but with a different architectural focus.
Instead of the honey-colored oolitic limestone, you get the dramatic black and white timber-framed or Tudor-style buildings.
Exactly. It's arguably a wilder, more rugged landscape that feels less manicured. And crucially, the food scene in towns like Ludlow is incredible. It's nationally recognized for quality, but without the exorbitant Cotswolds premium.
So what's the practical advantage?
The practical advantage of Shropshire is undeniable. It is roughly 30% cheaper across the board in accommodation, food, and petrol, and it features an estimated 80% fewer people. If your primary goal is historical ambience, solitude, and manageable expenses, Shropshire is a massive upgrade.
Okay, alternative number 2.
The Peak District, specifically Derbyshire. If you are looking for that stately home, Jane Austen vibe, you have exceptional locations like Chatsworth House, which are world-class attractions. The villages, such as Bakewell or Castleton, are stone-built and cute, satisfying the need for that historical visual.
The landscape contrast is key, however.
It is. The Peak District is dramatic. It features gritstone architecture, massive high-elevation crags, and much steeper hills. It is superior for serious hiking and outdoor adventure, but it lacks the gentle, soft, manicured English garden look that defines the Cotswolds. The Peak District is majestic. The Cotswolds is pretty.
Now, if you are committed to the Cotswolds aesthetic, and we understand why you would be, our sources strongly recommend strategic itinerary combos to manage the high cost and isolation.
The first is the city and country split. Do 2 nights in the nearby city of Bath. Bath has superb train access from London. It offers high culture, history, and city amenities, and it's a great base. Then do just 1 night in a southern Cotswold village, such as Castlecombe or Bradford-on-Avon.
So this strategy uses Bath's connectivity and dining options to manage the bulk of your trip expenses and logistics. You then minimize the rural isolation by only committing to 1 single night deep in the countryside.
Exactly. You get the photo and the experience without the 3-day logistic headache.
And the second strategy
is Oxford and the Edge. Stay in Oxford for the museums, the architecture, and the nightlife. From Oxford, you can take a short, inexpensive train journey to perimeter villages like Kingham or Charlbury.
This is highly effective for the learner who wants deep knowledge, easy access, and reliable dining. You can easily do day trips or even half-day excursions into the rolling countryside.
Accessing the charm without having to pay the excruciating Cotswolds accommodation premium every single night. You get the aesthetic without the full immersion cost. This approach gives you maximum flexibility, minimizes driving terror, and allows you to return to reliable transport and high-quality dinner options every evening.
Time for the final synthesis, segment 8, the verdict matrix. We're synthesizing everything we've covered to define the right traveler for this unique destination.
Traveler type 1, the backpacker or anyone strictly budget-focused, intending to scrape by.
Verdict, no. The Cotswolds is actively hostile to low budgets. You will spend all your mental energy worrying about the price of a sandwich, the £5 parking fee, and constantly checking the bus schedules for fear of being stranded. Your anxiety level will negate the peace.
Go to Wales or the Lake District instead, where low-cost accommodation and food are far more accessible.
Traveler type 2, the mid-range couple looking for a romantic getaway.
Verdict: yes, but UNIS fully accept the cost, that £180 per person per day standard traveler price. And you must be strategic. Avoid the main hubs like Bourton-on-the-Water. Stay in a slightly quieter, more residential village like Blockley, Painswick, or Winchcombe.
If the cost is accepted and the preparation is done, the romance and ambiance are absolutely 10/10.
They are. Okay, traveler type 3, the family with young kids.
Verdict: caution. Kids get intensely bored of pretty stone houses after about 45 minutes. This is a low-stimulation environment unless you visit specific attractions tailored for them, like the Cotswold Farm Park or a local wildlife park.
Otherwise, it's a lot of don't touch that priceless antique in small, expensive gift shops. And the roads and traffic pose a real environmental safety risk to young children exploring spontaneously.
And finally, traveler type 4, the luxury traveler.
Verdict: absolutely. This region is built for you. Your budget smooths over every single friction point we discussed. Private drivers eliminate the driving terror and parking nightmare.
Concierge services book your 3-week-out dinner reservations.
And Manor House hotels offer world-class, comfortable amenities. When the budget is high, the Cotswold is a world-class, seamless experience. So to synthesize the overall verdict,
Go on.
the Cotswolds is fundamentally a logistics trap wrapped in one of the most beautiful historical sweaters in Europe.
It is entirely worth it if you are willing to drive, if you budget high, and if you proactively avoid the crushing peak crowds of August.
And it is a complete and total nightmare if you attempt to do it cheap, rely on unreliable public transport, or prioritize spontaneity over planning. The quintessential English dream is real and waiting for you. It is worth all the planning for that feeling of profound peace you get in a quiet, amber-glowing village at sunset sitting by the fire.
But you should not expect to find that peace on the high street at noon.
Not a chance.
So our final Optimize recommendations. The best timing, May or September. The weather is generally kind and the schools are still in session, which helps manage the domestic crowds.
And the best base location for you, the learner, seeking strategic access: Winchcombe or Cirencester. They are real towns with functioning infrastructure, real people, and they offer superior, central access to the entire northern and southern region.
Plan your parking, book your dinner 3 weeks out, and crucially, pay for the zero excess insurance.
Do that and look for the magic in those quiet, expensive corners.
Here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you plan your trip. If the region's intense, uniform charm is based entirely on the legal preservation of historical wealth, does the modern Cotswolds premium simply represent the continued high cost required to maintain the English fairy tale?
You pay to preserve the aesthetic, but are you paying too much just to share it? Think about the cost of that fairy tale. Safe travels.
See you next time for the next deep dive.